pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first thing on our agenda is we have a guest tonight. A bashful guest. Recently, RSVP had an awards luncheon at the Villa Roma, and Julie was the town of Delaware's nominee, and she is our RSVP of the year. I have I just have something I'd like to read. Julie Maxwell has been with the IOU thrift store in Calhoun for the past 14 years. She served as manager and is now co-manager. Julie does the display in the front windows, supervises the in-store displays of clothing and other items. Herb Barnfine referred to Julie as a necessary person in the thrift store, often coming in after hours to make sure all the donated items were sorted and placed. She's reliable, responsible, and the award of Town of Delaware Senior of the Year is well deserved. And I have a certificate for you, Julie, if you'd come up, and perhaps get a photo of you, or maybe over here with some of the other board members.
Gotta squish in.
We're gonna have to squish in. Julie, I'll get in on this side. You guys,
Stand on a chair.
John, you can get in here too.
You guys get out.
And here's,
Okay.
can you get us?
How's that? Sure.
Have to aim lower.
I should have brought my little ladder.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Town thanks you, Julie.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Julie, here's an envelope for you.
There's a picture in there too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's great. That's nice.
Okay, Tess, you're up. Oh, no, acceptance of the minutes, I'm sorry. Somebody want to make a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
Seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now
Okay.
Tess, you're up.
All right, May receipts total $2,635.90 with $25.87.40 turned over to the supervisor. Of that, $27.82 was building fees. I've been working with Sally on the court records inventory. It's a fairly large job, and there's a lot more to it than our regular archived records because you need to get approval from both the Office of Court Administration and the Comptroller's Office before you destroy so much as a 40-year-old bank statement. It's gonna take forever. But anyway, we're working on it. Correspondence, I received my abstract of settlement from the county for the property taxes and collected about $4.2 million and it balanced to zero, so that's all good. In case you haven't noticed, the county will be paving County Route 164 from Kratz Road to 17B. They started work on June 6th. On May 28th, I received 2 resignation letters from the planning board. Michael Chinicki resigned, as did Tim Mullally. And there's one more thing I'd like to talk to you guys about. Renee and I have been involved for years doing 911 addressing, and Highland has a process where they have a form that gets filled out, and you leave it at, or I guess code enforcement. Okay. Anyway, it's a form for those houses that don't have any numbers, and then that form goes to the code enforcement. But instead of doing that, I I was thinking maybe we could just have the form that the data collectors could leave at the door, and then it doesn't require so much follow-up. So the other thing was, I talked to the Hortonville Fire Department about making the house number signs as a fundraiser, and Ed said we should have other fire companies, so I'll have to talk to them. But if I wanted to see if there was interest, at least before I approached you guys. So if it's okay, Renee and I will kind of start moving forward on this. It's a good time to do it because the data collectors are out there on the roads seeing what houses don't have numbers. So, what do you think?
Well, I think
we
it's a
need to
pretty
go.
a good idea. I just
Oh,
think
yeah.
that we shouldn't snub one fire district. You know, we should include all the districts. I mean, Hortonville is probably has the largest footprint, but Calhoun Fire District, Canosa Lake, they're all
And
in the
Jeff.
town, and Jefferson.
Yeah.
So if they're interested, if they're not interested, then maybe one of the other fire companies would like to take
Take
up
it
the fundraising.
Okay, so I'll reach
Yeah,
out.
we need to go forward with it at any rate, because we can't have any of our buildings not numbered. No, it's just
The
not,
emergency
it's not
people would
responsible,
appreciate
yeah.
Well, it's actually, it's in the building code that you
Yeah.
are supposed to have a number on your house. Municipal.
I think a lot
And
of
Renee,
people-
you had.
Or structure, it doesn't have to be a house.
They did this in Ewan and Eldred?
In Highland, yeah,
Down Highland. Is it complete yet, or?
It had been started years ago, but our data collector found that a lot of houses didn't have the signs. So then we made up a small form that he could fill out, give it to the code enforcer, and they would contact the property owner and say, you have to do this. But they could just as easily leave a notice that, it's been brought to our attention that you need a house number visible, so. I think they could do that.
Worth a shot, I think.
Okay.
And we don't have to necessarily bring Howard in, but Renee and I can probably kind of.
So we don't really need a resolution on that.
No, I
We're
just
gonna
wanted
do
to,
it.
if it was okay with you guys, so we wanted to.
sounds good to me.
Alright, that's it. I
That's
don't have
it?
anything else, yeah.
Bill?
Well, we have to go to bid or roll over our fuel oil for this upcoming year. We can roll it over 2 more times, so I suggest we roll it over. It's at whatever the board
Prices.
feels. I'm not sure right off the top of my head what the price is. I didn't get a chance to look today. We always roll it over because,
Because it's an old bid and it's probably
right,
cheap price.
right.
And I guess we should make a decision on that tonight. You guys, how do you guys feel about it?
If it's less money, then, if it's the same or less, then we need to roll it over, but if we can get it for less, then we need to.
Well, we won't know if we can get it for less. If you go to bid and you get it for more, then you're gonna throw out what you put in your contract by saying you can roll it over for 2. You understand what I
So
mean?
we put it out to bid, it voids the
Right.
roll
Voids
over.
it, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I myself would roll it over, we always have, and we've always got,
Price
the
of
board
fuel doesn't
sheet
go
with the
down
bill.
much.
It's been going up, so.
And all, remember, all they bid is an add-on to the barge price.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll make the, I'll second it.
Harold made a motion. All those in favor?
Also, Mrs. DeCristofaro Road is taken care of.
Good.
She's happy, I haven't seen her, but I'm sure she's happy. And that's about all I have to say, unless someone else would like to ask a question.
Okay. Howard, you're up.
Well, as usual, this time of year, things are picking up. I've got 3 houses under construction at the moment, plus, other projects, garages and porches and whatnot. So it's fairly busy, which is a nice thing. I'm expecting a couple more houses yet, so hopefully they'll come through. Yeah.
Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really a good sign.
That's,
Anything else?
no, that's really it.
Okay, Renee?
Yes. Okay, grievance day was held on May 30th. We had a total of 25 grievances filed, and we were able to stipulate on all but 3, and we had 3 corrections. This was the first year we had a 5-person Board of Assessment review. The feedback I received is that having 2 additional board members has worked out very well. The final roll will be filed this week. With the roll finished, we can now devote more time to data collection. And I have submitted for your review an Upper Delaware Council Technical Assistance Grant application. I'd like to request assistance in incorporating historical documents with our current files, and I thank you for your consideration. One last thing is, I'd like permission to surplus a printer that we have in our office. I've asked others in town hall, and apparently, no one has any need for it. So,
Something you wanna get rid of?
yes,
If you don't need
it
it.
still works, it's not the best, and it was inadequate for the amount of work we have to do. The volume, 2-sided copying, the speed, and so on, so. We have our new printer, and I'd like to surplus the old one.
Is it worth a trade-in on other office equipment?
Is it worth the ad?
It's a boat, it's a boat.
You gotta pay them to
Oh,
take.
I don't know. I can't
It's a
have
boat
it.
anchor.
Bring it down to the thrift store.
Maybe,
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, maybe the thrift store
maybe
would
this,
like it.
Dispose of it.
well, maybe the thrift store, because you gotta
Okay,
put an ad in the
okay.
paper and you gotta open like bids
Oh,
and
I see.
process for
Okay.
one little printer.
It doesn't
Personally,
pay.
I don't think it would be worth doing.
No,
Okay.
positive on that.
That's all I have.
Julia, Kara is not here, but, I guess we could just reiterate the fact that we were going for a CAG grant.
And that's okay, you got board permission for that, ready?
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Park Committee.
Okay, I just wanted, well, Ed, you, actually know about the, maintenance, you were
Well, I can
involved
talk
with
about that
the
first if
Job
you want
Corps.
to.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
We had the park mowed, I'm not even sure what it was done before the tractor parade, before the farmer's market. But on a go-forward basis, the Job Corps is gonna take over the maintenance of the park, the weed whacking and mowing, as a regular program. And they're gonna start on the 20, I believe they're gonna start on the 20th. So that will be the next time it'll be mowed. It was just mowed, I'm thinking, what, Saturday?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so, hopefully that it won't need it, but they will mow it, and on a go-forward basis, they'll do it as needed. The town agreed to buy a lawnmower for them, because that was one of the conditions, and a weed whacker. The only problem we had was, where are we gonna keep it? So, Allison, anybody know Allison from the?
Allison Hosking?
Yes, and she's familiar, she used to work with the farmer's market,
Mhm.
but she's now up at the Job Corps. She's gonna contact them and see if we can use their shed to store the weed whacker and the lawnmower.
The lawnmower will be tough though.
And,
I mean, there's not enough room in it.
You sure?
Is it a push or a riding?
It's a
for
push.
one? It's a push, okay.
It's a small one.
Yeah.
You mean in the shed that's already there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whoever's, that
weed
the farmer's
whacker,
market
yeah.
owns.
yeah.
I mean, the other thing we could do is store it at the sewer system. But it makes it more cumbersome, because then how do they get it from the sewer system? They're gonna have to walk it
Right.
over. So, I mean, that's the only obstacle we've run into,
Mhm.
and we're working on that. Okay. We ordered the lawnmower.
Great.
So I thought, and the Job Corps, again, they're good neighbors, and they stepped up to the plate, and it was nice.
That's great.
Yeah, it's one of their programs too, their
Yeah,
curriculum.
They have a building and grounds maintenance program, so it fits right
Yeah.
in.
It's a win-win situation, so it's nice to keep them, keep that relationship going. And then, we have a park meeting tomorrow night, and the first concert is, Saturday, July 13th. So we're just going to start promoting that now. That's about all that's going on right now.
Well, and the plant swap was canceled
Oh,
due
yeah.
to weather.
That's right.
That was really bad.
So what did you do like with the plants?
Some plants were donated. I had a call from someone to contact Joanne about the pumpkin patch, but we decided that wasn't gonna work. So I asked him to call the thrift store to see whether or not there was any like donation option, because there was one guy had like 100 tomato plants, somebody else had strawberry plants. It was just a rotten shame. It was just a rotten shame. I mean, aside from the fact that it raised, it was just awful.
The ones that Agway donated that were up at your place, Ed, they came back to the park, Joyce brought them down, and the Girl Scouts, we prepared the beds last Wednesday morning, and the Girl Scouts came, and they planted those plants, and we also bought $50 worth of plants with some Renaissance money. So, and it was Joanne Rosenberger's troop, and they did a great job.
As usual.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, Harold, you're up.
All right, we got a little ground to cover tonight. Living color again. The storage as of Friday was up. I don't know if you can see this graph, it's a little small. But if you can see that little red mark above the big darker blue mark, that's where the storage was as of Friday. But that little bitty mark represents 4.621 billion gallons above what the long-term median, and that's that dark one. And it's also 4.109 billion gallons above the level of 1 year ago. Now, we're supposed to be getting rain. I believe tomorrow we're supposed to be getting rain. And as of Friday, the Never Sink was at 98.5%, Pacton at 100.4%, Cannonsville, which is the one that feeds our river, was at 101.3%, and Roundout, which doesn't come into this area, it goes out the other way, that was at 99%. So you can see there's a lot of water in those reservoirs right now. Now, I don't know whether we're going to get really whacked here or not. They say, what, 2 to 3 inches. It might not be too bad, but who knows what's coming down the pike. There's several other things I wanted to talk about. The UDC's Project Review Committee, and this kind of corresponds to what the county is doing. They're looking to have each town and township along the river in the corridor look over the area and see if there's any possibility for future acquisitions for access sites in order to get into the river. Before everybody goes off the wall on this one, anything like that, it would be a willing buyer, willing seller. Don't think that the Park Service is going to come up the river and say, we're taking your land, we're going to put an access here. That's not what this is about. This is about trying to bring more recreation and areas to the river, so there's more use of the river there. So if anyone here has any ideas or anything like that, either bring them to me or let Tess know, and you'll see what can be done. They're inventorying, they're trying to do an inventory at this point. What happens later on, it all takes money, you know? So where that goes, I don't know. That's one thing. This is an interesting report given to us by the National Park Service. This has to do with statistical data for public use. And it's comparing numbers of people according to how they collect the numbers of who come to the river. And in 2011, they had what they call recreational visits in New York, 16,206, 130. This year, it's down to in 2012, it was down to 12,633. That is a 22% percentage drop, which is huge, of people coming to use the river. Now, what the factors are and why, I have no idea. But the interesting thing is, while New York State went down 22%, the same area with Pennsylvania went up 2.8%. So how do you figure that? I think everybody's walking with their feet across the river and staying over that side or something, I don't know. But that came from the Park Service. There is the River Basin Commission announced that they approved a 1-year extension on the flexible flow management program intended to meet water supply and demands, protect fish habitat, and enhance flood mitigation and repel upstream movement of salt water in the Delaware. So that plan is extended for another whole year to try to help that, and that's still a controversial thing. At the UDC meeting last Thursday, for the first time, I don't know if I have that here, but I'll tell you about it. It's the first time in history of the UDC, which is 25 years now. A representative from the Department of Environmental Protection, New York City, came as a guest to the board and gave quite a video, or rather a slide presentation, about the construction of the dams and about what they do and how they have to control flows and what they look for. I learned a lot. I didn't realize that, for instance, where they take water out, these buildings that they have maybe go down 5 stories into the bottom of the water, and the windows that go into that building are just open slots, and they test at those different levels of which is the best water. That's where they suck the water in and send it down. I didn't even know that, but that's the type of thing they're doing. They were there because there has been a lot of concern about the fishermen want to extend and have more cold water releases for the trout. Well, basically, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, that their job is, for one thing, basically, that is to obtain the best drinking water that they can for New York City. Everything else is beyond that, and they're not going to get involved in trying to take care of the Delaware River. They have a compact, and it's all done by the federal government and the DRBC and New York City as to when they open that thing and let the water on out. Now that is on YouTube, so you might want to go if people have their own computer. I don't know how long it's going to be there, but that very presentation he gave to the UDC is on YouTube, so if you'd like to see that.
Just like the town of Delaware.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Another thing, there are oral history tapes that were taken years ago. They basically went to old timers and sat down with them and asked them, you know, what was life back in 1842? Oh, that day it rained. I remember that day. The thing about it is they have got all these tapes and they haven't got any funds or anything to do anything with them. And they're not going to play those tapes. They need them transcribed maybe to a DVD or whatever technology they use today.
Transferred to digital. Yeah.
Yeah. There is quite a few, and if you have any interest in doing anything like that and some technical background and you're interested in it, please call the Park Service or the UDC or call me or somebody, and because I don't think without volunteer work that they're ever going to get these things, and they should be available. You should be able to go to a place and listen to what so and so said 35 years ago, or 25 years ago at least. And those people are long gone. That's a history that's just gone. You know? How many tapes? 133. So they did a lot of work. They did an awful lot of work. So that's that. The technical grants were due by the 30th, which, thank you, Renee, that's there. September 28th, if you like to run, or maybe just walk, they're having a walk or run, or whatever you want to call this thing, and it's named Strides Across the Delaware. It's going to be, it's the first time we've had anything like this for the Delaware River, and it's going to be up in Lordville, and they've just started taking applications today. So that's what's happened there. This is an interesting little one. Sullivan West Elementary School. This was a letter written to one of the National Park Service people. It says, on behalf of the 5th grade team, I would like to express our sincere appreciation for all of your help during the school year. We were able to set up 2 separate museums for the birds of prey and mammal trunks, and the students really enjoyed learning by examining and touching the variety of specimens that you provided. Our science club members were thrilled to make plaster casts of the animal tracks, and they love making prints in the sand. What a fun mess, she says. A water snapshot program afforded the entire 5th grade an opportunity to be real citizen scientists in testing our local stream water. And they learned a great deal about environmental stewardship. Many even enjoyed their homework assignment. And I hope several of their posters and poems gave you a nice variety to choose from. Anyhow, this is a letter from school teachers to the National Park Service to thank them for this program. And I think this is great, because to get these youngsters involved in the things that we have here, such as the Delaware River, is a wonderful thing. So that's another thing. There was one more thing. The DRBC at that last meeting has been, for about a year now or more, doing monitoring all along the Delaware. And they're setting up a basis of study of what the water is like at that time, where it is now. So they will have a basis to refer back to if drilling ever comes to this area, and if there's ever a problem, they can refer back to say, this is what it was before you guys even started. And I think that's a good thing, they're doing that. And the last thing here was the registration for the Sojourn. So if the Sojourn is that where they all go down the river in canoes, and they spend 3-4 days traveling a long time, but you have to get your thing in there by tomorrow. That's too late, really. But anyhow, that's what the UDC had to offer. It was a lot more than I usually have, but I wanted to make sure you all had that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal. The next is the supervisor's report. I don't have a whole lot. One of the things we have to talk about tonight, and maybe we can go right to council comments, and that is you mentioned resignations, right?
Yes, I do.
We have 2 resignations from the planning board, and which brings us down to a 5-person board. And we did some checking and tests. Correct me if I'm mistaken. There are currently 5 towns in Sullivan County that have 5-man boards. Forestburg, who disbanded their planning board, is going to a 5-man board. And if we change to a 5-man board, it would be 7 out of 15 towns. It is getting harder and harder to find people that are dedicated. We have an excellent planning board as it is, and we're still gonna need to be, we're gonna have to be on the lookout for good people in the future, because we have some people that are, I don't know how many, one coming up at the end of the year, Jerry? So that's something I wanted to discuss tonight, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about it or have any questions, or I know I talked to you about it, John.
What do you think?
No, I have no objections at all to it.
No, I don't have a problem with it. You know, it's almost
I mean, we can always
superfluous.
expand it again if we want to. I mean, it's
Sure.
but going to a 5-man board, this would be the time to do it, because we're not pushing anybody out.
Right.
You know, so.
We're changing it by attrition.
Okay. I hope it don't continue to attrition.
You also have the option of an alternate. If they passed the law, I think it was last year or the year before,
Yep, a couple years ago.
authorizing an alternate if you wanted to have one, so.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And we found one. We had enough trouble finding the first ones.
Do you need a motion?
But I think, yeah, we would need a motion.
I make a motion that we
Go to a 5-man
go
board.
to a 5-man.
We might have to do that by local law.
I'll second it.
Say again?
We might have to adopt a local law in order to affect that.
I think we do.
Because I did that in a different town once before, and I'm pretty sure we did it by local law.
So I'll have to,
Yeah,
that'll be
so I'll,
something.
I'll generate the paperwork for you if that's what the board's pleasure is, sure.
Recently as today, some members of the board and Jerry, we took a trip to Windsor, New York. We wanted to see that the noise ordinance that was lauded at the public hearing. I have a copy of it here, by the way. It's a long way from the 2-paragraph law that we had. And we visited a town that also has a compressor station, which is Windsor. I think we were all enlightened. It was a
Very
good
much
trip.
so.
We learned a lot. And other than that, I don't have anything else. Does the council have a comment? Anybody want to talk about anything?
I just wanted to bring up that thing about the fishing access down on the river road, if we should put a sign up there.
Oh, yeah.
On the river, well, I'll let Ed explain, he lives on the river road.
Yeah, that's a good point. I almost forgot about, thank you. Everybody's familiar with where Tower Road hits the River Road in Calico? I've had some complaints from residents of the River Road. Actually, all the complaints that I had were from people that live on the River Road, that it's sometimes dangerous, that a car coming from the west side of the River Road traveling toward town, there's a rise there, and all of a sudden they come down, and there's often people in the road that you can't see. They park alongside of your concrete, what do you call it? Barriers. Sometimes two or three cars, and one of the things we thought that might help that is if we put no parking there. There is parking just around, on the corner. And if somebody was walking to the river, they're visible then, they're not right at the bottom of that.
It's a bad spot to park.
It is, yeah.
Really, it's a bad spot to cross the road also.
So, I've been speaking with Bill, and we think probably it'd be a good idea to put a no parking sign there, make it a little safer. I know that there's some talk about that being an access.
I don't,
Well, I've had, actually it was, some people in the Park Service mentioned it to me.
Okay.
I think it's really too dangerous.
Well, at that confluence of those
Yeah.
roads, it would be dangerous.
Just a tough spot. I don't know what else. They might wanna move it down the road. I think the railroad owns that property down the road.
I mean, on the town side of the road where where, what's his name, used to get all the stuff from
All the feed and everything.
feed
Yeah,
and that from.
yeah. Where that EWAC, remember when the EWAC was in there?
Right, I don't think there's a problem parking in there, I've seen people park there.
Yeah.
It's
no,
just
that
when they
shouldn't
get
be-
down in the dip and park
Yeah.
there, that's.
Yep.
Yeah, well, but I'm talking, along with what
Mhm.
what Carol was talking about, they're looking for permanent
Right.
access sites. Now,
Mhm.
in the town of Delaware, if you look at a map, and I've been looking at this for the last couple of days, there's really, there's a place at the youth center, which, the flood control channel has kind of eliminated, because half the time it's got debris in it. Now, they did clean it, but it's already got debris back, as an example, so it can't be used. And the access to the access is the problem, so to speak. I don't know where else, everything else is private property. I do have some ideas, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't mention them here, but we could mention it if they come to fruition.
Yeah.
later.
This is a talking stage
Yeah.
at this point.
But as far as what do I need to put a parking sign up? Nothing? Just
Resolution.
Just a resolution? Okay. Somebody wanna move it?
I'll move it.
No parking sign? Okay.
Second.
Second by Al, all those in favor? Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the zoning, amending the zoning law and zoning map. Now, we had a public hearing, end of May, yeah. And I've talked with the council individually, and I think we would like to remove the zoning, the noise proposal as written. We're in the, we're looking at, I have a copy of, for instance, Windsor's zoning law. I don't know if this is the, I know it's been lauded, but I'm not sure that this is the one that we should follow, but obviously needs more. And on that subject, I'd like to say that I can't find anybody, not in Sullivan County, Orange County, Ulster County, that has a noise ordinance that talks about low-frequency noise. And that includes communities that have compressor stations. And here we are, we don't have one, we probably never will have one, and we're spending an awful lot of time. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. I think we should investigate it. But we're gonna, for now, go with the noise ordinance that we have already in the, at least that's the feeling that we'll have after discussing it with Jerry. And what we would like to do is to amend the zoning law with all the other amendments that were proposed, except the noise, pull noise. We already pulled the reference to compressor stations.
Yep, so you're gonna pull this.
And we'll pull this. Now, Ken, tell me, I mean, to do this,
The thing to do would be to amend the introductory local law to excise that provisions that address the amendment of the specific noise section. And that's really all you can do with it tonight. You couldn't then adopt it.
Right,
You would need to have it set in that amended version for at least a week before you could act on it. So, you wouldn't deal with it until next month probably.
I mean, it is, there are some things in there that some people are waiting for. I know Howard's gonna have to tell some people, you have to wait till next month. But as far as the other things, and as far as, I know that Buck, you called me, I tried to get back to you. I have a busy week. I've discussed this with our board members, I've discussed it with Jerry, and we're all at a loss to understand what the hell you're concerned about. I mean, we think that this is a more conservative approach to our zoning. It preserves the river. I just don't get it, and I think we'd like to adopt the law the way it was presented. So we can't do anything tonight anyway, because
Other than to make that motion to amend the introductory law by removing from it
the noise
proposed
ordinance.
noise amendments.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion if somebody wants to make it.
You got it.
Second.
Okay. Al made it, second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
The next, new business, we have it says, resolution uniform notice of claim. I'm gonna attempt to explain this. In New York, and in the town, I guess, we have, there's a 90-day notice of claim. In other words, somebody wants to bring a claim against a town, they have to notify us within 90 days of what?
Well, they have to serve us with a notice of claim, which is basically their notice of their intent to bring a lawsuit. It's not for all types of claims. It's for tort claims, primarily if somebody slipped and fell on town property, if somebody thought that the town was responsible for some accident they had on one of our roads, for example. That's the typical place where so they file the notice of claim, which then gives us or our insurance company the opportunity to then investigate, and also they can even ask the claimant to come in and be placed under oath and ask questions, all as a preliminary to making a defense. The law was recently amended, and it's just going to come into effect now in June, where these notices of claims had to be filed locally here with the town clerk, and that still is in effect. But I think probably in what's I can only figure is a revenue generating action on the part of the state of New York. They've now made it so that they can also alternatively be filed with the Department of State, and that's not a unique thing. You can serve process on a corporation, for example, to commence a private lawsuit by serving it on the Secretary of State. That actually is not a bad process, and I think that's the reason why they did it. They figure they've got this whole mechanism in place, and you can file the thing with them, and they mail it on to the in our case would be municipality.
They'll generate some fees.
And they're gonna generate some fee, they're gonna generate a $250 filing fee, and the carrot in it, I guess, is they're gonna send supposedly $125 of that $250 to the town, if anyone does bother to utilize that as the means of service.
But only if we fill out this form.
But we have to file a form, yeah, we have to file, well, you can still file it with them, we just won't get it, is the only thing. We do have to file a form and notify them
File
as to.
for this resolution, I think.
And that's what this resolution does, it authorizes us to file the form designating the town clerk as the person to whom the notice of claim would be forwarded by the Department of State. We'll find out, my observation is just, knowing the nature of that type of practice of law, if you can file it with the town clerk for free, or you can file it with the Department of State for $250, most of these guys are gonna file this thing with the town clerk still, I think. It's expensive to litigate, and anytime you can avoid some added expense in it, most of the attorneys who practice in that area are probably gonna avoid the expense, I would suspect. I mean, it's not hard to find the town clerk of any particular town,
They find me everywhere.
yeah.
So this is more than just naming the Secretary of State as an agent.
Well, the state has already done that. The legislation has effectively designated the state themselves as an agent for service of process. What we're doing is designating the person to whom the Secretary of State will forward that process, with the notice of claim, I should say. And that would, our whole system is geared around the town clerk. It would make sense for it to come to the town clerk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the lawsuits.
Well, you all had a copy of this resolution, and so I'll need somebody to move it.
Second.
Second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, and now the only thing left is the resolution to accept the abstract.
Bills.
Have you guys already done some of the, you've done your work, huh?
Yes, I know.
You all
So
done?
moved.
Okay.
We're all done except Cindy.
Okay. Okay. John moves it, second by Cindy. Did you say second? I thought you.
No, I didn't, but
Okay.
I didn't.
But you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we come to the public comment section of our meeting.
I got two of them. Ed?
Well, Buck, you're on here, and Steve Lungan. Buck, you go first. Yes. You're number one.
Listen, I'm talking about the zoning amendment. I'm very disappointed to hear this decision. I hope it's not absolutely final. I guess I didn't do in the comments I submitted last meeting, do a good job of explaining it, but let me say this, like, the goal of the rezoning along the river corridor was purely an administrative issue to set up separate lots.
Separate what?
Identifiable lots was a requirement from the county, right, if I'm understanding correctly. So that was the intent. So you and I are neighbors. You're in the DR district. I have a property that's split by the DR. I was partially DR, partially RU. So now all of my property is RU. Now, based on the way this is written now, the piece of property that was formerly DR, I can look at the RU special permit options. They're like 30 potential uses I can put on my property next to yours, which formerly I could do like 13, 12, 10, whatever it is in the DR. So my property it's ambiguous what can happen on that property right now. Same thing happens with Cal B. That's in the river district now. So the way this is written, or the way it could have been written, was to say, we're gonna make me RU, but overlay the exact same regulations that I had before on my piece of now RU, but was DR. Then there's absolutely no change. It's not written that way now. It is not written that way now, at all.
We have an overlay zone.
That you have to go back to the UDC and look at the land use and water guidelines to see what applies. So a developer coming into town, homeowner, wants to know what they can do in their district, in that overlay, has to go read the land use. It's not in our zoning. So it was crystal clear before.
Maybe make me understand what you're saying, because I don't really get it. The overlay, the imaginary line, okay, that we defined in a lot of ways, and we've made it better. But the overlay that on property that we didn't define, you're saying that that the DR district, which is the stuff that's in the overlay,
Is very.
that our zoning wouldn't apply. We have to go to UDC. Is that what you said?
No, like your property's all DR now.
Exactly.
So it's completely clear. My property, which was partially DR and partially RU, is now all RU. The part that was in DR isn't subject to the same zoning that your property is.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes,
Not
it
the
is.
way it's written. Not the way it's written. No, it's referencing to the land
and
and.
there's three different or four different sentences that say
Right.
at the bottom that that reiterates that fact.
That is to be consistent with the land and water use guidelines. It doesn't say it's consistent with the DR district as written. See, that's crystal clear. It lists the uses, it lists setbacks, it lists building heights, crystal clear. It just says it has to match land and water use guidelines. That's this big. It's not like this. And that's what's happening with the Cal B area too. It's not clear. You've taken something, you've made one part very clear about the administrative part, and in the midst of it, and I don't even know how it's just so clumsy. It's made the rest of it very ambiguous. Every single property owner there with a property that's now going the other way isn't going to quite know what to do, because they're going to look at RU, it's got 30 possible special uses. So who decides which one? It's UDC eventually, but it's going to be the planning board. It should be a table. There should be a decision made at this point that these are the permitted. And to me, if it was an administrative use decision only, just apply. I don't want it. I should have the same zoning as you on the property of mine that comes up to yours. We're in the same district. We're in the same. I shouldn't be able to do different things on mine than you can do on yours. But the way it's written, it could be.
Well, I mean, with my property, it makes it more restrictive. I mean, the imaginary line went right through the middle, and now my entire property is in a restricted area.
See, it's written in a flawed manner, because you should have RU capacity on yours.
Jerry, does he have a point? I'm trying to understand what is. I mean, our DR guidelines are the same as the UDC guidelines.
Yes.
So what's the point? I mean,
Well, he's saying that the portions that were in DR that are now in RU are subject to the RU uses rather than the DR uses. Is that not what you're saying?
And I'm saying they should be subjected to the DR uses.
But they are still subject to the overlay.
But in like,
You know, what you're saying
setback-free-
is correct. It is a little bit more burdensome, but it would be the same way if we went the other way. We
No,
would have had the same burden, just flipped.
There's no burden. You just reference the same table. You reference me right back to the existing DR, and it's done.
How
There's
can
no.
I reference you back to the same table?
It's an overlay. If it's an overlay zone says this
it's the same
overlay,
overlay though, isn't it? I mean, it's not a
you're
different
you,
overlay.
you're calling it an overlay, but there's no. Remember, Travis at the end said, "Well, it'd be good if you made it a district." It
Yeah.
doesn't have any schedule. There's no limited uses.
We can't make
There's
it a district because it is not definable.
excuse me. It is definable by that line. So it is. It can
You
be.
can't
It
say
can be.
the line is here.
It can be an overlay zone though, which can
It
have
is an
those.
overlay zone.
But
It
it
is an
doesn't
overlay.
have that schedule. It references back to the land and water use guidelines so that it isn't absolute. There's going to be a question on every one of these applications. Anybody in that could come back and ask for a use that's like I could ask for something that's limited by the DR zoning now, But it's not limited to me now. It is not limited the way this is
If
written.
it doesn't conform, it is limited to you.
There's a, listen, they're referencing the land and water use guidelines, so, there seems to be, some interpretation through
Well, the
there.
land and water use guidelines were what was used to draw up the DR zone.
So, and you have it, so why not just connect right to it and you're
Well,
done?
we're referencing it.
No, you're not.
You know, this
You're
went,
not, if you
this went
reference that, we
through,
wouldn't be talking.
this went through the UDC, they approved it, the National Park Service approved
They-
it.
they-
We made changes to it, they're satisfied, they
They're-
signed off
they're-
on it.
They can't say as much as they'd like to say about it. And I'll leave it at that,
They-
because
they-
it references
I
the
can't-
land
I
and
can't
water
go
use
by what
guidelines.
they
I'm
don't
just
wanna
saying
say.
that the town is gonna be unhappy. They're gonna get their land and water use guidelines complied with. It's just gonna be, there's gonna be back and forth confusion. It's clumsy.
Well, I tell you, you know what, this is the third time you've said this, okay? And I guess I am dumber than a box of rocks, because I still don't get what you're saying. If the overlay is, if it's in the overlay, it's still required to conform to the DR district.
He wants to
It's
make
no-
the
no, it's not.
overlay
It's-
an actual zone.
It's not required. If it said that, Ed, then I'm good. If it said it's required to comply with the DR zone,
It does say
perfect.
that.
It doesn't say that. It says land and water use guidelines.
Do you have a copy
It
of
references
it?
it back.
Does somebody have a copy of it?
So if it said, what you're saying, if we didn't reference land and water use guidelines, we said the DR district,
You're good. And reference the Cal B area back to the Cal B district, which is also compliant right now with the river management plan. So you've got these things set
well, we
already.
were compliant before.
I know,
I mean,
and this
we
had
were
nothing.
compliant and before, and we felt that this was better, this was more definitive, by
It's not-
making real property lines rather than an imaginary line. I mean, and in most cases, that happened. I mean, there are real lines now.
Well, it's something that's definable on the ground. It may be a property line, it could be a road, it could be a stream, but something that you can define on the ground. The DR zone, or the river corridor zone is not definable on the ground.
Understood, but the DR table that you have is very clear. So if you connect that back to everything that was formerly DR, just reference the same table. Reference back to Cal B. Don't reference back to the land and water use guidelines. That's not specific. Your tables are, and they are in conformance. That way we have the same, we're being judged to the same standards.
Survey it, it's not gonna be that.
Well,
No, it's
This is-
that
this is
question
more-
of
this is
line,
more-
that's another issue.
what you're saying then is it's more terminology, it's,
Well, it's.
because that's not the way you explained it before, you
Well,
know,
it's tying it right back to the districts we have right now. DR and Cal B are compliant with the river court.
We actually think that we're doing that.
It's not doing it.
So is this just a matter of change of verbiage?
It could be, yeah. Yeah.
No, but, I mean,
It's a lot of
you're not
pages.
really changing anything except adding that verbiage to reference it back.
Can you think of a footnote to add to it that would make that?
Well, there are footnotes.
There's
If you
three different
remember,
places
there's
there are
three different
footnotes
footnotes
in there.
that actually say that. I mean,
But it's not, if it referenced back to the DR, if it took my property that is now RU and said, I'm subject to DR district regulations, that's,
in the overlay.
right. But the ones that are Cal B, if they do the same thing, if they reference directly back to the existing zoning, it's perfect. But it doesn't do that. It references back to the land and water use guidelines, which is not, it's not, number one, it doesn't put the answer in the book. It puts the answer down there, in the UDC and the interpretation.
I don't understand that either, because we have DR guidelines,
Well, that's what I'm saying, just link directly to them in the zone, they're in the zoning.
That's right, they're in the
They just
zoning.
link to the DR.
Liz,
It's right
that's
here.
it?
It's right here.
There's three places in here. It's in there. In addition to the standards contained in Article 8 of this zoning law, the planning board shall, in approving special uses in the DR, Cal B1, Cal R1, and RU districts, take into consideration the effects of the proposed use on the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River, and shall attach any and all conditions of approval necessary to provide protection to the UDSRR from impacts of development. This designated area shall, for the purposes of this law, be an overlay zone. Said conditions may include, but shall not be limited to, increased setbacks, buffers, landscaping, fencing, special stormwater control facilities, limitations on the location, number, and size of advertising signs, more restrictive lot coverage limitations, more restrictive building height limitations, and limitations of use to those specified in the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River Management Plan as of the date of this law enacted. That's one place it's in here.
Okay, but can we can just stay with that, because they all say about the same thing? That doesn't, it doesn't identify anything. It makes everything a negotiation about the uses. It doesn't limit, it says we're gonna be respectful, like, the intent is completely clear, and that's what's befuddling to me, is clearly you wanna be in conformance, you said it from day one, that's, this is an administrative thing, but it's, ironically, it's made one thing clearer, but made other things not clear. They're just not clear. Like, why should there be a statement about what uses are permitted? The uses that are permitted in DR are clear, right now, right? They're clear.
Okay, but a property, but you're talking about a split property here.
No, but I'm saying the part that's been, my DR portion should still be subject to the same uses that yours are, right?
Well, I mean,
Why would I have a
they were.
different why would I have a different opportunity? The way this is written, it's like, I can propose something out of RU, and there are 30 special permit uses,
if
and I
that-
could come,
if
and I could
whatever
come
you're
back.
proposing doesn't conform with,
I'm just saying, I should be able to look, and any resident here, look, this is what I can do on my property. That's clear, like the DR is clear.
Any prospective buyer, any prospective purchaser of the property, they should be able to find it out right here in the town, in the code, as opposed to having to go to the UDC to figure it all out.
Well, they wouldn't figure it out, see, because
don't
they,
have to go
Right,
to
no,
use.
they wouldn't figure it out.
It's already there.
no, but they would propose something, I could propose
We
something in
still-
RU, and then it would have to go through the planning board, and
First of all,
you guys would
it
discuss
has to go to
it.
the UDC. Everything that happens in the DR district has to go to the UDC. So I mean, it's to say that you don't have to go to the UDC, you have to go to the
no,
UDC.
that's not true. Only if it's a special use, it has to go to UDC.
It's special uses.
But right now, there are
I
permitted,
was under the impression that we had to,
No, if it's
when we went to
permitted-
that meeting.
If it's a permitted use, you don't have to go to the UDC. If it's a special use, you do.
but right now, you have permitted uses in DR, and you have permitted special uses in DR.
Right.
But what's my part of my property that's now RU, it's not subject to those, the way yours is in DR. Whereas I'm looking at going, why shouldn't it be exactly the same? I think it should be exactly the same.
So what you're saying is we should have moved your property line to make
It's
your,
not moving my property line.
your
The o-
rezoned your property to all DR instead of all RU.
No, you're misunderstanding me.
Well, you're not solving our problem unless you do that.
I am solving your problem. Though, the problem is, I don't think you see the problem.
You got that right.
Actually,
I tell you, we agree on one thing, Mark.
that's one thing. I agree.
I mean, I've looked at this thing up, I've read it, and I put it down. And then I go back and I read it again, and I don't see it. I don't understand what you're saying.
There isn't, like just what was being read there, like there are restrictions on use, building height, setbacks. In the DR district right now, there are restrictions on use, building height, and setbacks. They're there now. But here, for the RU portion of my property that's in the overlay, that's not established. Why not establish the uses, the building heights?
Here's the other note that's in there. Some portions of the RU district uses are subject to regulations pertaining to the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River as provided herein and may not be permitted within said corridor as mapped on a topographical map contained by the river management plan. So you have to go back. I agree with you that you do have to refer back to the land use guidelines but I don't see any way around it.
Oh, there's a clear
You
way.
know.
Just tell me that for my half of my property that's in the overlay, I've got to comply with the DR district regulations.
If you
And
were
it's done.
enforcing this, Howard, do you understand how it's to be enforced?
Yeah. I do kind of get what Buck is saying.
Yeah.
That it would be easier if it specifically said for that overlay district that's in the DR overlay, that all the rules of the DR district apply.
But you see, the
But I know
upshot
yeah.
of what Buck is saying, you might as well take every lot that was split by the DR-RU line, and instead of the ones that you made RU, make them all DR, because that's the effect. If you do what Buck is saying, that's exactly what you're doing. You don't need an overlay zone, you might as well just call that whole parcel DR.
You don't have to. Why
Yeah,
do you have-
no,
why do you have
you
to
do.
Why?
Because it's the same effect of what you're doing. You're saying, just say that my lot is completely, even though I'm RU, I'm bound by the DR zoning requirements. Well, then I might as well just zone it DR and call it good. That's what you're talking about. You're making it as more or more complicated than you're claiming they're making it.
No, sir, I'm not.
Well, you see, it's all a matter of point of view, and everybody's got a different one, apparently.
No, you can overlay non-specific districts.
No, but you're not overlaying a non-specific district. You are overlaying and saying, on this piece of property, even though I've zoned it RU, I have to apply the use list period that's in the DR zone. Why don't you just call the lot DR?
For the portion that's in your dotted line there.
The
For that portion.
The portion that you can't identify because it's a line that doesn't exist.
If something came up on a property where that mattered, they would survey it. And the National Park Service would get
then
involved.
I guess we haven't had that happen.
We
in
haven't
25
had it
years,
yet, so why not set it up and assume we can handle that particular detail? I mean, because that's what's driving this.
Just call it DR and call it good.
If the line was definable, we wouldn't have the problem, but they chose not to make it definable. So,
Understood, but
And you know what? If it was defined and you did it 3 times, you'd have 3 different lines.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, because it's an imaginary line. And that's the problem. That's what we're trying to solve.
It's a surveyable line.
Oh,
At
yeah.
some expense.
I guess so.
And the National Park Service knows it, but that issue, I mean, you can have overlays of and you can have an aquifer overlay. You think that's a specific line?
even if they do.
You can have an aquifer overlay. You can have a wildlife overlay. So don't tell me we can't have one for this. You know who did? Lumberland figured it out. It's not rocket science. Lumberland did their zoning with an overlay for the river corridor. Same thing. They didn't do it the way we're doing it.
Even if they did survey it, you're gonna wind up with a survey point on this mountain and a survey point on this mountain. And every property owner in the middle is gonna have to pay to have that line established on their property.
You know, I think I can live for myself with my property, since that's probably all I can speak for. If I've got a fuzzy 100-foot wide understanding of where that line might be, and if I ever have to deal with the question of whether on which side I'm on and what I can do, then I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But I'm just saying, this is not a good, well-drafted, I appreciate the effort, I just do not appreciate at all that this is doing what it's intended to for the town.
Well, we have a difference of opinion, that's all I can say. I think that we came up with something that is workable. It may not be.
You just heard Howard.
Well, I'm not, but
It's,
I can't, even if it referenced back to until that line would be determined by, certainly not the town. It's
Right.
just up in the air anyway. I can't tell somebody, you have to do this until that would be determined.
right, but
And
on
I
the-
do
on
know
the
that if
other
it
9 or
once-
10 options, the other 20 projects
Oh,
before that, you could tell them specifically.
I would go to the DR zone then.
You
If
could
it
tell
was
them spe-
established that if that line, this imaginary line that I can't see or a surveyor, But however they would determine it, if that half of it where you're standing is in the DR zone, I would go to the DR regulations and say,
Right.
this is what you can do. I know that that's where I would have to go.
Right.
So why does it have to be spelled out any different?
Right now, that line is still, the way the zoning is now, before we changed it, that line is still an imaginary line, you can't define it.
I think one of
There's no
the,
change there, I mean, the line.
Oh, I know.
From that point of view, there's no change at all.
I think one of the reasons.
The only change is somebody like me where they put all of my property in the DR zone.
Yeah, which I don't think was necessary to do,
Well,
frankly.
I didn't care because I'm not gonna do anything with it, but.
No, understood. And mine, I'm not gonna do anything any differently either, but it isn't correct. It's not clear.
The portion of his property that's in the DR zone that formerly was in the RU zone, I mean, if we could reasonably establish that portion that's in the RU zone, he can do RU uses without a problem. I mean, it's a determination
it's written now?
that the planning board and the UDC are going to have to agree on.
Per case.
I
Per
think the
case,
reason
for every
for that-
special use.
But that's,
The
well,
reason for the overlay was basically because some of these properties were losing DR and becoming RU. And the UDC wanted, and the National Park Service wanted to make sure that that overlay reached up and encompassed those again. In other words, they didn't lose what they had already had.
Right.
And that's the reason for the overlay. All this other stuff is
no, I know it,
superfluous to
because
me.
they set the line based on all the views from the river and all, yeah, I understand. So
That's the reason
they
for
didn't
the
wanna
overlay.
lose that.
Yeah.
I know what
And
the
that's why
reason
it was
is.
incorporated in this whole
And I think a lot of the discussion just, if you take into consideration the topography and other factors, it's very unlikely we're going to have a lot of problem here. I mean, we're probably making a lot of issue out of a lot of nothing, because the topography in most of those areas isn't going to permit any sort of special uses that would have gone there anyway. Which is another thing that we considered. You know, so that's,
Okay, well, I said my piece, you know.
Next person, Steve.
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a
So
motion.
Ed, I'm not sure I understand what's gonna happen with the noise ordinance then.
It's out.
It-
The
the
noise ordinance
proposed-
we're going to is the old ordinance.
So you're gonna go back, you're gonna revert to what was. Does that mean that that recommendation has to go back to the planning board and they have to vote on that again? Or it means it's just with you? Okay, so you're gonna revert back to the original, which a lot of people have questioned as being unenforceable?
No.
They're not reverting to anything. They're leaving what is on the books, which the prevailing comment at the public hearing held last month was what's on the books is better.
Better than what.
So, and I think you were one of those people who commented to that effect last month. So to sit here and say that you're going back now, it's starting to sound like no matter what gets done here, ain't gonna be any good.
Actually, I was just asking for clarification. I mean, I don't really remember being at the last meeting, but the clarification I'm looking for is that I thought that one of the concerns that's been raised for a number of years now about the existing ordinance is that it may be unenforceable.
No, never raised.
Nobody said it was on.
Oh, I thought Linda Bastian,
It's
when
a
she
little
came,
hard to
was
understand, but it was never raised as being unenforceable.
Linda Bastian's problem wasn't a noise ordinance problem. Linda Bastian's problem was a dog problem.
What?
Which is a
It
different.
was a barking dog problem.
Which
It
is a
wasn't
different
noise
issue.
ordinance.
Yes, we enforced the noise ordinance when we did the go-kart track up at the Villa Road.
That's one
Very
example.
effectively.
Yes, very effectively.
Yeah, okay, but one of the concerns that Liam raised was, that rather than just sticking with the existing noise ordinance, that a comprehensive review and a new comprehensive noise ordinance should be investigated, so.
Well, I think if you listen to what Mr. Sykes said when they were discussing it, that's exactly what he said. Leave what's on the books now on the books. He explained that they went and they looked at an ordinance upstate where they even dealt with the low-frequency thing, which was one of Liam's big issues, and that they're gonna look into it a little further.
They didn't really, they didn't deal with the low frequency issue. This is a copy of the law, by the way, and you know what, it's not in their zoning, it's a separate
noise.
It's a separate
You
noise
can
law.
do it that way, sure.
I mean, but there's nothing that we said tonight, Steve, that's gonna preclude us from
going and looking at it
go
any further.
working
Sure.
further, yeah.
Nobody said
And that's one of the reasons why we made the trip today.
Yeah, thank you, I think
I mean,
that's
it's-
great, you're listening.
So I just have one other thing. I'd like to say that I really appreciated that Jerry Uger came to Gasland too. I didn't know if you wanted me to say that in public, but anyway.
I'm not ashamed of the fact that I went to Gasland too.
No, it was noted and it was appreciated. Thank you very much.
May I ask something? I didn't sign in, but last September I had asked Mike Chinecki about exploring the grant money by the federal government to look into replenishable, sustainable energy on the community's part. I understand there's monies coming available from the federal government. Have we moved on that as a community?
Well, yes, we have.
Point-
When you say as a community, as a town, we have. Yeah, we did. We haven't heard anything back from them. We did a survey. Yeah, we did a survey, and I don't know, Mike, you
We're
have
still
to.
waiting for some number crunching for that, and
Yeah, so we
yeah,
did the first steps.
right, exactly. So we're still waiting on compiling that all, and we'll have to write a CFA, which is for the grant money, and I think we're focusing on maybe a new town barn, for that. For that CFA, and that would be great for that. It's an application. What's that? Consolidated funding application for that. Yeah.
There's an acronym in this business.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Thank you.
So how
We're
would-
still looking at that.
I'm still confused. So how will that happen in terms of the noise ordinance and just maintaining what we have? How would it happen, or how would it come about that anything that, say for instance, is in the Windsor town law, by what process would the town board begin to consider incorporating some of that stuff into
Well,
ours?
it's the planning board.
The planning board's gonna continue to look at the issue. We're taking what's his name? Liam Murphy's comments into consideration. We looked at the Windsor law, and we'll look at a few others. And we'll probably come back with another recommendation to the town to maybe simplify it and get it more up to date.
So that's an actual ongoing process?
Yes, it's an
not-
ongoing process. Like I explained at the public hearing, the zoning laws are a living document. I mean, they can be continually changed, and that's what we'll do.
I'm still confused, but not about that.
Well, nothing will happen until next month, unfortunately. We have people waiting on some of the other changes that were amended, and they shouldn't have to wait any longer. It's not fair to them, so. I think we're gonna move ahead next, when we get through all the proper steps.
Yeah, you just have to wait, and if you wanna adopt it with the noise changes deleted, which you made that decision tonight, you can just, you'll vote on the next meeting.
So, with that, I'll entertain
I'll so move. Second.
Is that the second time we've done that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a copy of that, doc you have about the terms